hands felt clammy as I stood at the altar. The ornate decorations, the soft hum of violins, the murmured congratulations, they all blurred into a hazy backdrop of noise. My heart pounded in my chest, but not for the reasons it should have. Something wasn't right. I knew it. I'd known it for months, really, but today, the unease was unbearable. The priest's voice was a dull echo, his words barely registering as I scanned the crowd. My parents, sitting in the front row, were expressions of pride and expectation. Friends and colleagues lined the pews, all smiles, waiting for the picture-perfect union to unfold. But my gaze kept darting toward the double doors at the back of the church. Then it happened. The doors swung open with a loud creak, cutting through the quiet like a blade. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Ryan strode in, his hand clasped tightly around Claire's. My fiancée, her delicate fingers interlocked with my brother's. The air seemed to vanish from the room. I froze, my mouth dry as the murmurs began. Ryan's expression was smug, a glint of triumph in his eyes. Claire's face was a mask of nervous determination. She pulled her hand from his and stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. But I'm in love with Ryan. The silence was deafening. Then, like a dam breaking, the whispers began. I felt their eyes on me. Pity, confusion, judgment. But amid the chaos, a strange clarity washed over me, a calm I hadn't felt in months. Claire's aloofness, her cold demeanor, the excuses for late nights and missed plans, it all made sense now. The unanswered questions, the quiet doubts I buried because I wanted to believe we could work through anything. Every piece of this painful puzzle clicked into place. I should have been angry, or humiliated, or crushed, but all I felt was relief. As Claire stood there waiting for a reaction, I realized something. I'd been bracing myself for this moment for far too long. The truth was, I'd known it was over long before today. I was just too afraid to admit it to myself. The whispers grew louder as I straightened my posture. I took a slow breath, smoothing the lapels of my suit jacket. Without a word, I turned away from the altar and started walking down the aisle. Each step felt lighter than the last. My pulse steadied, the knot in my chest loosening. The crowd parted, their shocked faces blurring into the background. As I neared the exit, a sharp laugh rang out from somewhere behind me. He must be devastated. I paused, letting the comment hang in the air for a moment. Then a smirk tugged at the corner of my lips. Devastated? If only they knew. I pushed the doors open, stepping into the sunlight. For the first time in years, I felt free. I sat on the edge of the couch, the dim glow of the lamp casting long shadows across the room. My fingers traced the edge of the photo frame in my hands. It was a picture of us. Me and Claire. Taken during a trip to Italy last year. The Amalfi Coast stretched behind us, all vibrant blues and sunlit cliffs. We looked perfect. Picture perfect. But staring at it now, I realized how much of that was a lie. It wasn't that we didn't care for each other. We did. At least I think we did at some point, but ours wasn't a relationship built on the kind of love people write songs about. It was more, calculated. A union of ambition and convenience. She was charming, polished, the kind of woman who could light up any room with a practiced smile, stable, dependable. Together, we were the couple people envied, the ones who had it all. But beneath the surface, it was like living in a beautifully decorated house with no foundation. I set the photo down and leaned back, closing my eyes. Little moments I'd tried to ignore came rushing back, louder and clearer than I wanted them to be. There was that time I surprised her with her favorite flowers. Peonies. Peitzel peonies. She smiled, of course, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks, Ethan," she'd said, her voice light but distracted. She'd set them down on the counter and walked away without another word. I told myself she'd had a long day, that I was reading too much into it, and then there were the nights when she'd stay late at work, claiming deadlines were piling up. At first, I didn't question it. Claire was ambitious, driven. But then I started noticing little things, the way her phone would buzz at odd hours, how her demeanor softened when Ryan was around. Ryan. The name itself made my stomach twist. Growing up, he was always the one everyone noticed first. He had this way of drawing people to him without even trying. Well, I was the one who stuck to the rules, who made sure things got done. Ryan was the risk taker, the charmer. He was the golden boy, and I was the reliable one. I used to think it didn't bother me, but now I wasn't so sure. Claire had always been intrigued by his stories, his jokes, his charm. I convinced myself it was harmless. Why wouldn't she get along with my brother? But now those casual laughs and lingering glances felt anything but innocent. My mind wandered to the last family dinner we'd had. Ryan had been recounting some ridiculous adventure. Skydiving? Or maybe it was scuba diving. I couldn't even remember. Claire had leaned in, her laughter a little too genuine, her gaze a little too focused. At the time, I told myself I was imagining things, but now, sitting here in the quiet of my apartment, the weight of those moments pressed down on me. Maybe I'd been blind, or maybe I just didn't want to see it. The first thing I noticed when I picked up my phone that morning was the number of notifications. Hundreds of them, messages, missed calls, and worst of all, mentions. My name, plastered across every platform, dragged through every comment section, man left at the altar by his fiancée and his brother. From groom to meme, Ethan's big day goes viral, memes. There were memes of me, my face, frozen in shock at the wedding, next to captions like, "When you think life can't get worse, and then it does." I threw the phone onto the couch and sank into the armchair, the weight of humiliation pressing down on me. The laughter of faceless strangers echoed in my mind. I could almost feel their judgment, their smugness at having something so juicy to gossip about. It wasn't just about Claire or Ryan anymore. It was the public spectacle of it all. My private pain had become entertainment. I wanted to disappear. My phone buzzed again and I groaned, reaching for it reluctantly. Another headline, another pity text. Instead, I saw a name that stopped me cold. Leah. "Hey," I said after answering, trying to sound normal though my voice cracked slightly. "Ethan." Her tone was steady, no trace of pity. "You sound like crap." "Thanks, Leah. Great to hear from you too." Cut the sarcasm. I saw what happened, sighed. "Let me guess. You're calling to tell me everything's going to be fine?" "Not exactly." She paused. "You need to get your head out of your ass and stop feeling sorry for yourself." I blinked. "Wow. Thanks for the pep talk." "Listen to me," she continued, her voice softening just enough to make me stay on the line. This doesn't define you. Yeah, it's awful, and yeah, people are talking, but you're better than this." I muttered. Her words hit me harder than I expected. "What choice?" I asked quietly. "The choice to either let this break you or use it to build yourself back up." She paused, letting the silence linger. "You used to be resilient, Ethan. You used to know who you were before Claire came into the picture. Find that guy again." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, her words playing over and over in my head. The next day, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity. Instead of scrolling through the endless posts mocking me, I went for a run. It was awkward and exhausting, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was doing something for me. I dusted off my old sketch pad, the one I hadn't touched since Claire came into my life. My hands trembled as I drew the first few lines, but soon the rhythm returned. Leo was right, I had a choice, and for the first time in a long time, I was choosing myself. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the worn leather cover of my old sketchbook. My fingers traced the grooves of my initials embossed in the corner. I hadn't opened it in years. The memories came rushing back unbidden, like an old film reel flickering to life. Sometimes, we all rush forward, and our emotions become our rational brain. Leah was right, I had a choice, and for the first time in a long time, I was choosing myself, not letting the world choose me. I could see myself, younger and eager, standing in front of an easel. The smell of paint and turpentine was thick in the air. I'd been so passionate, so determined to make something of myself through my art. And then Claire had walked into my life. At first, she'd seemed fascinated by my work. She used to watch me paint for hours, her chin resting on her hands as she complimented every stroke. But that fascination faded fast. "Ethan, don't you think you should focus on something more practical?" she'd asked one night, her voice dripping with faux concern. "Art's nice, but it doesn't pay the bills." I remember the knot in my stomach, the hesitation in my voice when I replied, "It's my dream, Claire." She'd smiled, that saccharine smile that always seemed to win me over. "I know, but dreams don't always work out. You should think about our future." Our future. That phrase became her weapon of choice. Over time, I gave in. I quit the art classes I loved, sold off my supplies, and traded my passion for the steady, soul-crushing routine of a corporate job. For her, the memory shifted, and another moment came to mind, one I hadn't thought about in years. We were at a party, one of her endless networking events. She introduced me to her colleagues with an air of pride that felt strangely hollow. "This is Ethan," she'd said, her hand resting lightly on my arm. "He's in finance." Not, "This is Ethan the talented artist." Just Ethan the man she'd molded into someone who fit her world. I was so deep in thought I didn't hear my phone buzz until the second ring. It was Leah. "Leah, what is it?" I asked, my voice strained. "You need to hear this," she said, her tone sharp and urgent. "I did some digging. Don't ask me how. And found something you need to see." "What are you talking about?" "Claire and Ryan," she said, and my heart sank. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment betrayal. It was planned. Planned? My voice cracked. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, and I could hear her shuffling papers in the background. There are bank statements, Ethan, transfers between Claire and Ryan, emails. She was using you, Ethan, for your money, your connections, everything. I felt like the ground beneath me was crumbling. "You're saying she never loved you," Leah cut in. "And Ryan? He's been jealous of you his entire life. This wasn't just about Claire. It was about him wanting to take something, everything, from you." The weight of her words hit me like a freight train. The memories, the sacrifices, the betrayal. It all made sense now. They'd played me. And I had let them. But as the pain settled, so did something else. Clarity. For the first time, I wasn't questioning myself. I wasn't drowning in guilt or shame. Instead, I felt a spark. Faint, but growing. They had taken so much from me, but they hadn't destroyed me. Not yet. The room buzzed with polite conversations and distant laughter. Family gatherings always felt staged, a performance where everyone played their part except for me. I sat quietly at the edge of the room watching the interactions unfold, pretending like I wasn't carrying the weight of everything unraveling inside me. "Ethan, join us!" my mother called out with a gentle smile. Her voice, soft yet anxious, always seemed to carry an unspoken plea for harmony. Nodded, but I couldn't bring myself to move. My mind was consumed by what Leah had uncovered. Claire's carefully crafted web of deception, Ryan's toxic influence, and the betrayal I had once refused to see. "Is everything okay?" My mother's voice dropped in concern as she approached. "No," I whispered, the weight in my chest unbearable. "It's not." Her brow furrowed, her usual calm demeanor faltering just for a moment. "What happened?" But today, that illusion shattered. Ryan stepped forward, his confident smile flickering. "This is ridiculous," he said smoothly, his voice smooth as glass but brittle beneath the surface. "Oh, it's ridiculous?" I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Tell me, Ryan, how long have you been plotting this? How many nights did you sit back and enjoy watching me fall apart while Claire smiled in my face?" His jaw clenched, his calm facade breaking just slightly. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know enough," I countered, my voice sharp. "Leah found the evidence. Transfers. Emails. A plan so well hidden even I couldn't see it. Faces that had once been indifferent turned to shock, then disgust. The family, so loyal to Ryan's charisma, began to see through the facade. "Ethan, stop," my mother said, her voice trembling. "This isn't the way. He's still family." But something inside me snapped. Family had been a cage, a toxic one that bound me to expectations, to a version of myself I never truly embraced. I met my mother's eyes and shook my head slowly. "No," I said quietly, but firmly. "I'm done." Ryan's gaze locked onto mine, his smirk replaced by a glimmer of vulnerability. The facade he built was cracking, and I didn't need to destroy it. He was doing it himself. "What are you going to do, Ethan?" he asked, his voice low and edged with something I couldn't quite place. Fear, maybe. "What's left for you?" "What's left?" I echoed, a bitter smile playing at my lips. "A future where I don't need your validation, where I don't have to fight for scraps of attention or approval. A future where I can breathe." The room fell silent again, the weight of my words settling in the air. Ryan, standing there, looked lost. For the first time, I felt free. Not just from him, but from the expectations that held me captive. As I turned away, leaving the family behind, the tension that had once defined my life began to dissolve. For the first time, I walked away without looking back. The news broke faster than I could grasp it. One moment, I was sitting in my apartment, numb from the events of the past weeks. And the next, my phone was flooded with notifications. Headlines flashed across my screen, and I couldn't escape them. Claire, Ryan, their betrayal. At first, I couldn't believe what I was reading. Then reality slammed into me, hard and fast. Leah's tip to the media had gone public. She had finally done it. The evidence she uncovered: Claire's financial maneuvers, Ryan's conniving manipulation, laid bare for the world to see. I could almost feel her smirk from across the city, watching as the chaos unfolded. "Is this true?" I whispered to myself, reading the reports over and over again. Claire's polished image shattered. Ryan's suave confidence crumbled like dust. Their once perfect world was crumbling beneath the weight of their deceit. The messages flooded in, some supportive, some vicious. "How could she? What a liar. What did you ever see in him?" For a moment, I felt numb. The betrayal cut deep, but seeing them fall from grace, seeing their carefully crafted facade torn apart by public outrage, there was a bitter sense of justice in it all. I glanced at my reflection in the mirror, my face pale, eyes hollow. The man staring back wasn't the same anymore. His version of me had been through hell. And now, standing on the edge of something new, I felt free. The weight of the world seemed to hang over them now. The once celebrated couple was a laughingstock. Friends who once admired their every move distanced themselves. Colleagues turned their backs. Even their loyal supporters began to question their motives. Seeing the toxic web they had woven, I didn't have to do a thing to witness the fallout. Social media was ruthless. Memes, accusations, angry posts, all aimed at Claire and Ryan. Their downfall wasn't just a betrayal to me, but to everyone who had ever trusted them. And in that moment, I realized something. Justice didn't always come from me. Sometimes the world itself did the work. I stood by, detached from it all, watching their empire burn. Claire's glossy photos were placed with headlines detailing her lies. Ryan's confident speeches were mocked, twisted into jokes about his incompetence. They had lost everything: respect, dignity, and the image they once claimed as their crown jewel. But in the midst of it all, I wasn't celebrating. The pain was still there, raw and unrelenting. It was the world, the lies, the future, the relationships, the job, the dreams, the goals, the vision. The future where I didn't rely on the validation of people who were never truly mine. It left a void I hadn't expected. Yet, there was clarity too, a sense of understanding. This was the end of something, but also the beginning of something new. A future where I didn't rely on the validation of people who were never truly mine. A future where I no longer carried their weight, their lies, and as I closed my eyes, the noise of their downfall fading into the distance, I realized something else. True freedom isn't about revenge. It's about finding peace in yourself, with or without the chaos around you. The gala was nothing like the event where my world fell apart. No stained altar, no hushed whispers of judgment, no glances of pity. Instead, a grand ballroom, shimmering chandeliers, and a sea of faces dressed in sophistication and power. It was a world I had once feared, a world that seemed distant from the one where betrayal had wrapped itself around me like a suffocating cloak. But tonight, it felt different. I walked in with quiet confidence, not the man who once clung to approval, but the one who had rebuilt himself from the rubble of humiliation. The suit I wore wasn't a symbol of wealth or status, it was a shield against the past. Every step was deliberate, grounding me in this moment of reclaiming control. The stage loomed ahead of me, not as a platform for destruction, but as a space where I could redefine who I was. I wanted to show the world that I was still alive, purpose-driven, and with passion for reason. The stage loomed ahead of me, not as a platform for destruction, but as a space where I could redefine who I was. A hush fell over the crowd as I took my place behind the microphone. The weight of my past wasn't lost on them, but it was no longer my anchor. I stood there, steady and unapologetically present. My journey here, I began, my voice calm and steady, isn't one of bitterness but of renewal. I spoke of loss and betrayal not as victims, but as stepping stones to something greater. When trust is broken, we are left to piece together the fragments of what we once believed, but it's those moments of despair, that carve the path to strength. The audience leaned in, their expressions shifting from skepticism to genuine curiosity. They didn't need names to understand. The pain, the triumph, the resilience, it spoke louder than words. And then, in a deliberate pause, I looked out over the crowd, letting my voice rise with conviction. It's not about seeking revenge or dwelling in the shadows of what others did to us. It's about embracing who we truly are, despite the betrayal. The applause was immediate, thunderous. I could feel the heat of it washing over me, not because of what I had lost, but for what I had reclaimed. The weight of my past had been lifted, and with it, the perception of vulnerability faded into something else entirely. After my speech, industry leaders approached, their eyes reflecting newfound respect. Conversations once dominated by whispers of my fall from grace now centered on my resilience. They didn't pity me. They admired the way I had rebuilt myself, not from a place of despair, but from strength forged through adversity. As the evening wore on, I realized something profound. Redemption wasn't a destination, it was a transformation, a shift in how I saw myself and how others saw me. 2. The past may have tried to define me, but it no longer held the power to do so. I was no longer a man defeated by betrayal, but a symbol of rebirth, a testament to the strength that can emerge from even the darkest moments. And as the final notes of the evening played, I knew the applause wasn't just for my words. It was for the man I had become. A man who no longer needed validation from those who once held him captive. The knock on the door was unexpected. I wasn't prepared for her to show up. After everything, I thought she'd stay away, leave me to the peace I'd been building, but there she was, Claire, standing on my doorstep, her eyes wide and full of regret. I opened the door slowly, not in a rush to let her in. She hesitated, her fingers brushing against her sleeve, her voice faltering before it even left her lips. I made a mistake, she said, her voice trembling. With Ryan. It was all a mistake. I didn't say anything at first, just stood there, absorbing the words, watching her as though she were a ghost of someone I once knew. I know now, she continued, her voice breaking, that it was always you. You were always the better choice. I should have realized it sooner. Her eyes searched mine for something. Understanding, forgiveness. But I gave her nothing. I couldn't. The past didn't deserve to haunt me any longer. You don't need to explain, I said finally, my voice calm, steady. Your words don't change anything. Her breath hitched. She blinked rapidly, trying to fight back the tears that threatened to spill. But No, I interrupted. It's too late, Claire. Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment she looked utterly lost. I saw the version of her that once sought control, the one who fed on manipulation and betrayal, but that version had no place in my life anymore. She opened her mouth again, but no words came out. I didn't need her explanations or excuses. The past was behind me, and with it, the hold she once had over me. Without hesitation, I gently closed the door, leaving her outside in the cool evening air. The weight of her presence lifted from my doorstep, and with it, the chapter we shared came to a definitive end. There was no room for manipulation or regret anymore, only peace. The brush glides effortlessly across the canvas, the strokes unburdened by the weight of past regrets. It's been years since I held a paintbrush, but now it feels like a part of me that never truly left. The vibrant colors spill onto the white surface, each hue a reflection of my emotions, some raw, some muted, but all part of my journey forward. I can still feel the ache, the betrayal that once anchored me. But the act of painting is different now. It's a form of release, a way to reclaim who I was before everything fell apart. Leah watches from the doorway, her presence steady and comforting. She doesn't interrupt, just stands there, silently supporting me with her calm energy. We've become close in these past months, a friendship built on understanding and shared pain. She's been there for me in ways no one else was, grounding me when I felt lost. There, I say softly, stepping back from the canvas. What do you think? Leah tilts her head, her eyes scanning the painting. It's beautiful, she says simply, a gentle smile playing on her lips. It's you. I breathe out a slow, steady breath. Maybe, I say, brushing a lock of hair from my face. It's closer to who I want to be. Our moments are filled with these quiet exchanges, where words don't need to be spoken to understand the depth of each other's thoughts. There's no rush between us, no expectations, just a steady foundation of mutual respect and care. Meanwhile, Ryan and Claire unravel in the public eye. The once untouchable couple is exposed, their manipulative tactics and hollow ambitions laid bare for the world to see. The strain shows on Ryan's face, sharp and worn, as his reckless actions drive a wedge between him and his family. Claire, once revered for her poise, now grapples with a shattered social standing, her influence slipping away like sand between her fingers. I watch them from a distance, detached but aware. They're consumed by guilt, by the facade they work so hard to maintain, and as they implode under the weight of their choices, I find myself lighter, freer. Their fall didn't define me, it freed me. Leah's voice breaks my thoughts. You've grown so much, she says, her eyes soft with warmth. You've found yourself again. I nod, a small smile tugging at my lips. It wasn't easy, I admit, but losing them, letting go, wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The journey isn't over, but with each step, I feel more aligned with the person I'm meant to be. The betrayals, the misunderstandings, they taught me valuable lessons. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about recognizing that their actions, no matter how hurtful, set me free to create a life that reflects my true self. As I pick up the brush once more, the strokes are deliberate, full of purpose. This canvas holds not just the remnants of pain, but the promise of something new. A life built on authenticity and strength. Leah watches quietly, her presence steady as always. And together, we continue forward, untethered by the past, embracing what's yet to come. The final strokes glide effortlessly across the canvas, each one adding layers to a story I've spent months trying to piece together. The paint is thick, vibrant, a reflection of the intensity within me. In front of me stands a powerful image, a broken chain, its shattered links reshaped into something stronger, unyielding. I step back, my breath caught in my throat. This painting tells a story I didn't know I needed to tell. It's more than art. It's a testament to the journey I've been on, the pain I've survived, and the resilience I've found. Leah stands quietly in the doorway, watching as if she's been part of this process all along. She knows what this moment means to me, and her presence is a calm reassurance. It's beautiful, she says softly, her voice a gentle hum in the stillness. You've come so far. I nod, absorbing her words, but they don't capture the depth of what I feel. This isn't just about creating something beautiful. It's about reclaiming a part of myself I thought was lost forever. Taking a deep breath, I step closer to the painting. It's more than beauty. It's a reflection of everything I've learned, the trust I've rebuilt, the boundaries I've set, the self-respect I've finally claimed. Leah moves to my side, her presence grounding. You had to go through it to get here, she murmurs. Every piece of pain was a step forward. I can't argue with that. The pain wasn't just a byproduct. It was a necessary part of my growth. The betrayal, the manipulation, it forced me to confront parts of myself I had been too afraid to face. I turned to her, a small, knowing smile on my lips. And yet, here we are. Her smile mirrors mine, a silent understanding between us that words can't quite capture. Later that evening, I stand before the painting once more. This time alone. The gallery lights cast a warm glow, highlighting the cracks in the chain that have been lovingly repaired. It's a symbol of renewal, of letting go, of what once held me captive. The things in my life have been repaired, scattered throughout the streets and brick buildings around the gray city. The small moments that have been lovingly repaired. There's a symbol of renewal that once held me captive. My voice starts low, a quiet monologue that breaks the silence. Trust isn't given, it's earned. And boundaries aren't barriers, they're shields for the soul. Leah's words echo in my mind, her gentle reminders that strength isn't built overnight, it's forged in moments of vulnerability, tested in the fires of hardship. I learned the hard way, I continue, that self-respect isn't something someone else can bestow upon you, it's something you claim, fiercely and unapologetically. The weight of the past feels lighter now. The shadows of doubt and betrayal are still there, but they no longer dictate who I am. I've faced them head on, and with each challenge, I've emerged stronger. With the final lines spoken, I stand in silence. The painting speaks louder than any words ever could. The room is filled with light, not just from the gallery, but from a newfound clarity within me. Leah joins me once more, her gaze locked on the painting. This is your story, she says softly, and it's beautiful. I nod, a warmth spreading through me. And it's mine. As the sun sets, casting long shadows across the walls, I step into a future that feels wide open. My voiceover captures the moment. There's still so much ahead, but I'm not afraid anymore. This journey has taught me that pain doesn't define me. It's the strength I carry forward that shapes my path. The room is quiet again, save for the faint hum of hope. I breathe in deeply, feeling the promise of a hopeful future.